Welcome back to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. Today we're diving into the future of revenue with Mark Walker, CEO of New.io, a company that's raised over $40 million and is powering some of the biggest names in AI, including OpenAI, Jasper, and Glean. New has delivered 3x year-over-year growth and created an entirely new category called Revenue Lifecycle Management. In this conversation, you'll learn how the fast-growing AI companies are experimenting with pricing, why outcome-based models matter, and how to avoid being trapped in outdated systems. If you're a founder, SaaS leader, or anyone navigating price strategy in a hyper-competitive market, this episode is for you. Get ready for high-energy, big-picture look at what's next, quote-to-cash, hybrid models, and protecting your margin in a world where the pace of change is accelerating every quarter. This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Founders, if you're serious about growth, you need conversations that count. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts where your buyers are already listening. With over 15,000 interviews booked for more than 800 founders, Kitcaster has helped clients raise millions in revenue, build massive followings, and close game-changing deals. Stop chasing attention with ads and cold outreach. Step up to the mic and let your story work for you. If you want inbound leads, new customers, and a bigger footprint in your market, head over to kitcaster.com and let's get you booked. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Okay, I've got a confession. As a podcaster and founder, I'm constantly meeting incredible people, guests, listeners, or other entrepreneurs. But here's my little secret. I'm terrible at following up. My inbox is basically a graveyard of missed opportunities. Does that sound like you? You meet someone amazing, exchange emails, have great intentions, and then life happens. 6 months later, you're kicking yourself thinking, I should have stayed in touch with that person. This is exactly why I started using warmstart.ai. And honestly, it's transformed how I think about my network. Instead of letting relationships go cold, Warmstart analyzes my existing contacts and helps me identify who I should be reaching out to and why. It even writes the outreach messages for me. But here's the key. I review everything before it goes out. I'm not just talking about this because they're a sponsor. I'm talking about it because watching a healthcare executive use this to build his entire advisory board in one weekend with 4 CEO signups made me realize I was leaving money on the table every single day. Your network is your net worth, but only if you actually nurture it. Check out warmstart.ai, use code AIFF to get $50 off your first month. Stop letting your relationships turn into missed revenue. All right. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Hey, Ryan. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I really enjoyed digging into you and your company a little bit with the LLMs before we got going. So I'm really excited for this conversation. So let's just start with a quick introduction to New.
Great. So New's, really a next generation business system for recurring revenue and consumption companies, right? I didn't found it. I was introduced to it about 3 years ago and asked to become the CEO. It's a whole story about that we can get into later. But really what the thesis is that at the pace of change that we work at today, you really can't be stringing together different systems. But you do want systems that have the same kind of power and integrity of the old systems, but they have to be much more adaptable. So, quoting, contracting, self-service, billing, consumption, whether directly or through our partnership with Metronome, really, really powerful.
Absolutely. So, the whole pricing model now is kind of getting thrown on its head. We had the golden era of SaaS, which now is being challenged from different models. It's kind of, and it's still in the air, right? Everything's changing and everyone's experimenting. So maybe you can talk about this shift to kind of a usage base to, or from a subscription model, but also there's hybrids and kind of how New is like helping companies adjust to some of this.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's a really interesting question because we work with most of the major AI companies. Some of them are really well known, they're all really well known, but that we're working with them is well known. So OpenAI and Glean and Jasper, people know about those. And then there's a bunch of other ones. But together they comprise like about 99% of enterprise AI compute, right? Our customers or about to go live with us. And The really interesting thing is none of them are running the same experiments because we had to see all the pricing models that they're using, right? And so there's all these different variants that are emerging. And then what we're also seeing is that this is in the same way that SaaS radically changed how pricing worked for all software. The emergence of SaaS did that about 20 years ago. That's having an impact on everybody else because we're starting to see the same questions raised. And you can see the reaction of Salesforce. Like the reaction of Salesforce is kind of like that. We're seeing this cascading impact on business models. So it's really interesting. We can get into it in more detail about what we're learning about what experiments people are trying. I think it's too early to know what the right answer is. So I think it's, and also remember, a lot of these parts already existed before. It's not like Snowflake wasn't running a token-based consumption model like 15 years ago. They were, right? It's really people are now optimizing and trying to balance it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if you are, you have some of the biggest clients in AI in the world, customers.
Yeah.
What are their challenges as they're thinking about pricing? And because it seems like the subscriptions for most, let's say, major LLMs, if you're talking about Gemini, you're talking about ChatGPT, you're talking about Anthropic, you're talking about all the big ones, are all kind of competitive with each other. And they're all kind of vying for new products that they can add and where can they have kind of like upsells potentially. So what kind of challenges are they looking at right now as far as pricing goes?
Okay, so you don't get to play with those people talking about what they're actually doing, right? So I can only talk in generalities, but I think here's a really interesting pricing problem that I don't think has ever existed. Well, it kind of exists in computers. It's kind of like Moore's law on steroids, right? So the cost of compute, meaning the cost of a token, is plummeting. So imagine that you're the chief revenue officer of one of these companies, or even just an AE trying to contract for one of these companies. And you go, okay, so you're going to spend $1 million with us, and that's going to be, I don't know, whatever number of tokens. Well, meanwhile, the cost of tokens is going down.
Yeah.
So people try to put together pricing contracts that are fair to the customer and fair to the provider, while simultaneously in this vicious competition cycle, driving down the cost of the thing you're selling. Imagine in the old world, if you were selling seats and you had comparable seats, because that's the other thing, is some of these capabilities are quite comparable, and the other company starts going, oh, our seats are now half the price. And by the way, we're going to honor that for existing customers. That is definitely not a problem we've dealt with before, right? So that is, I think, a very common problem that these companies are now. For some companies, this is why outcome is so important. If you're an outcome-based company, like I charge you $10 per resolution, or $10 per document processed, or $10 per whatever, this is great news because your input cost is plummeting, right? But if you are a token selling company, and you're effectively selling compute, obviously very, very value added compute, this is a very interesting business model problem.
Yeah, 100%. And this is kind of tip of the spear stuff too, is like outcome as a service is here how I'm hearing it described. We had kind of software as a service, then we have service as a software, and now we're hearing outcome as a service. And I'm really interested in like kind of what that model is. So is this basically assuming kind of like agentic support that can then show attribution for the system that's employing it? So if you have outcome-based solution and your outcome you're looking for is one widget sold, then essentially what one of the outcomes of the agentic solution is going to be actually to show attribution for the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? So, and first of all, one of the things I think we have to really anchor on is don't think of agentic or AI-based solutions as being separate from the rest of the solution, the rest of the software milieu. For two reasons, right? One is, AI or probabilistic computing will never be as efficient or effective at doing some things that deterministic or programmatic solutions be able to do. So for example, the odds of you getting truly probabilistic accounting is probably very, very low. There's just no juice worth this, there's no juice that justifies the squeeze. You probably get probabilistic configuration of and data entry and a bunch of other things that lead to accounting, but maybe not the accounting itself. I mean, maybe accounting, because accounting is kind of made up anyway. But there's other things that you might not want to do that with. But my point is that these pressures will affect all software, right? So the problem with outcome-based models is that for some companies, it's really straightforward. And for other companies, it's completely ridiculous, like hard to do. So I'll give you a good example. If you are Checker and you do background checks on people, they already do outcome-based pricing. Like sure. You buy, and DocuSign is outcome-based pricing. Did they sign it? That's the thing. That's what they're selling. They sold you generated a document and they signed it, and they sell it in envelopes, outcome-based pricing. And Checker, background checks, right? Really simple. If you buy data enrichment from Apollo or from ZoomInfo, or name the other, all the Seamless and all those other people, same thing. You wanted an outcome and you got it. You got your data enriched. Now, there's obviously lots of other things they sell that may be less outcome. That's another thing. But those are examples where you can easily imagine price per result, right? But think about new, for example. We have a challenge where, we're really accelerating the ability of companies to do business in lots of different ways, but it's not like they got bigger solely because of us. Like we do have pricing models that basically say, yeah, we don't charge you, even in our revenue-based models, we don't charge you for like how much you grew. That is your ROI. But it's not like we made you grow. We helped you. We were part of the answer, but not the whole answer. That's problem number one. So unless your system is doing a unitary thing, it's hard to do outcome-based pricing. But then you can do variants on it where you can do step-based pricing. Like I helped you, how many of this did you do? How many of that did you do? But that's getting back more to the snowflake world, right? The other problem with outcome-based pricing is a conflict of interest between the customer and the software company around how many outcomes they would like to automate. And if you're interested, I'll give you an example that I heard recently that's really kind of drives this point home.
Yeah, please.
So I was talking with a senior executive in a very old industry. Pretty much this is like Fortune 1000 stuff, right? And this CEO, and he's very forward looking. And one of the things he does is he takes all his senior managers out, or maybe the senior managers, literally anybody in the company who sticks around for 5 to 10 years, he figures out some way to take them to a barbecue or a dinner or some kind of event to celebrate their tenure with the company. And the question he asks them is, what do you know because of what you do that you think I should know as a CEO that you think I don't know, right? And it's a great freaking question, right? Just so it gives you an idea of who this person is, right?
It's like a Zen koan almost.
Pardon me?
It's like a Zen koan almost.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, did the wind move the reed or, so somebody in their claims processing, it's an insurance company. So in the claims processing department and the underwriting department says, our AI-based underwriting system is killing us. And he said, sorry, how? He said, well, we used to spend 80% of our time bringing value to people in the hardest point in their life. And we helped them with emergency funding for their funeral. And then we helped get them through the process of getting their claim settled. And that gave great meaning to what we did. But now all that is taken care of by the AI. So the only people we get to talk to are people where the guy who died gave the insurance to his girlfriend, or the person who died stopped paying their fees, or we can't figure out if the person's dead or not, or it's not clear who the beneficiaries are, right? That's our whole day now. And that's a result. Nobody wants to do that. As a result, the part that the AI can't do, the human part, there won't be anybody to do that part because nobody's going to stick around, right? And so they're having to significantly salt the workday of these people with happy cases that the AI could handle. So if you're in the software company and you're selling the outcome, and now your company is now going, actually, we're going to salt it back in. People are going to have to build that in as a feature and sell it. Like the salting is valuable, right? And I thought it was a really interesting experience. The conversation went on to talk about how other parts of the company had an even worse experience. But it was, I thought it was super interesting and really probative to what we're thinking about in outcome-based pricing, because the outcome you want may not be as simple as what you think. Like, I resolved the ticket, yeah, successfully or unsuccessfully. That's a big example, right?
Yeah. So in that case, is that the AI is actually taking the joy out of the work experience for the staff? Is that kind of what he was describing?
Yeah. And when you take the joy out of doing what you do, you then take the enthusiasm out, and eventually you have staff churn and you have no experts anymore. So if anything changes, there's nobody actually to understand, or there's nobody to deal with the edge cases, and there's nobody to deal with the rest of it. And I think we all have to be cognizant of that in deploying these solutions. You make it better, but you have to think about it. What's the ultimate objective of the company? Is zero humans the objective of the company, or is it actually a cadre of enthusiastic people with high esprit de corps who are looking after your customers in the hard cases? That's going to be the hard balance.
Yeah. That's kind of like, I think, cross category. It's like the promise of robots is they take the drudgery out of our life. But it kind of, the robots came for joy first a little bit. If you're thinking about like design and art and music and like the creative pursuits right now is really struggling. It's really interesting. One thing I wanted to ask too about like outcome-based pricing, because what's kind of nice about it too is it is derivative of the price of compute. Now, it seems like, because the desire and need for compute is so great and power, it's basically going to it's on a trajectory to run the power for unlimited energy to zero. At least let's say on like a 100-year scope is a result, a positive outcome of like AI. Maybe the top one will be like free energy for everybody once AI figures out how to give it to us. So, it makes me wonder how that's going to kind of affect pricing. If you kind of can unbundle the price of compute with the price of your product, then kind of what is the strategy and tactics then about like setting pricing? Or even what is it today? Because, I've spoke to, dozens of founders, and like really nailing where and how to price becomes like a major pain point for them.
Yeah, I think you need to think about it as what is your differentiating value over the raw compute. So for example, there's all sorts of things. We use tools that are that use the large language models from the customers that we actually have, for our own customers. So the people you don't expect, just say for right now, to say Anthropic and OpenAI, but obviously there's other people. And those tools, and obviously we have enterprise accounts, and we use AI across the company in many, many, many different ways, but we don't use necessarily Anthropic directly in all use cases or OpenAI directly in all use cases. We are often using them through mediated solutions, right? So that raises two pricing challenges. One is, and actually I'll give an example from New in a second, but one is, are you differentiated from the other providers of that experience? In other words, it's not that hard to differentiate yourself from the raw capabilities of the underlying models because they're not packaged for purpose. So yes, they can be used. Like for example, you can prompt, OpenAI or Anthropic to do amazing things if you are an expert in doing that. But we use tools that automate the prompting in effect, or the agentic reach out, and provide results that I don't need to train an AE to be expert at that. It just enriches data for them, and that's the value of that software. So in that case, if that's what it's doing for me, it's not connected to the drop-in compute. It's connected to how well does that save my AE time. Now, maybe the drop-in compute may eventually change how many AEs I need or something like that, but that's I say a good distinction. If you're selling, by way of Lovable and Bolt, right? Going straight at each other, and Cursor and a bunch of other companies. The competition between those companies, and they're all great companies, by the way, they're all interesting and great companies, but they are differentiating on being amazing at different things, right? So if you're fundamentally thinking of it like a design to prototype, even to delivery model, you are probably in the lovable Bolt end of things. And then if you're in the hard coding and the hard engineering end of things, like we are, by the way, we'll use all these tools, but they are used in different ways for different purposes. So the people who are using Cursor and all the other IDE based things they're not using in the same way as the teams that use Lovable or Bolt or whatever. Makes sense?
Totally.
So you have to drive differentiation that is unique to you, and then you can price it based on the value and the increased efficiency for the end customer. And if you don't do that, you are going to get either eaten by the model providers, which I think is a relatively low risk, but getting eaten by the other competitors is a very, very high risk.
Yeah, the one that comes,
and regardless of how you price it, like even if you give away for free, if there's a better tool, people will pay for the better tool rather than use the free one. That's not as good.
well, and isn't everybody just scrambling for that now? Because Google is just notorious for just making the best tools in the internet with the best business model and making everything free. Whether that was Gmail or that was like Google Docs and like the things they provide, Google Maps. When you think about the product rollout for Google, that's really what they do. Now you can see that maybe they've had a little bit of fumbles with their products along the way as they're introducing all their AI products, but man, they're on a roll now. So how much of that is considered now when people are thinking like, okay, if we look at history, Google's going to come out and launch a competitor to our product for free in a matter of time. So, getting it right and getting the value right, getting people locked into that certain platform is crucial. So I'm kind of looking at this now, and maybe everybody is, because there's so many amazing tools. I'm pretty committed to Lovable. I've built a bunch on there, and I feel, familiarized with their machine. But I'm always trying other stuff and comparing it to it. So, the loyalty base, at least for me, is probably just with familiarity and then, of course, price consideration. Because at some point, I don't know what the max is I'm willing to pay for all the AI subscriptions, but it's probably pushing $200 at this point, And that's just using kind of the pro level entry point to all of these. So I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I thought just finish your thought, and then I'll give my thought.
And so it has how it pertains to the models and just the ability for companies, whether they're AI native or they're spinning up AI products, like that. Why new is so important, because you can experiment, you can find the threshold. You can show multiple pricing options where people can make a decision like, oh, does usage-based feel better for me? Is it just a monthly subscription, set it and forget it is what I want because I love the product. I want to do that. Like figuring that out is like a very complicated process. Not only that, if you don't have kind of a centralized place to like organize all that things, if you need to make changes, man, you got to find 20 different people that have the passwords to change everything across the board.
And you got to explain your change to each of those systems. In other words, but something I was going to say, digging into this, right? So New both solves this problem and has this problem, which makes it very meta, super fun, right? So yeah, absolutely. So New, one of the major reasons, I would say actually the reason why we've won all the AI companies is because they know that they don't know what the next step is. They know that this is true, like the pace of change has changed, this little sort of calculus on my chest here. They know that's true. And what they don't want is to be locked into a system where they can't experiment, because the problem with experimenting in business models is you're stuck with the experiments. Like even if you decide, hey, we're going to price this based on the number of rabbits you own, guess what? You're now stuck with counting rabbits. Right? And that's what you have to do, at least for the next 3 years, right? And just think how intimidating that is, right? So by having these unified systems, or having systems that play nice with others as well, then you can kind of de-risk that. But I'll give you an example of what's going on for us, and then and then how that cascades into our thinking about how to build an AI product, at least in our world. So the first part is we sell the same products on completely incompatible revenue models all the time. So we have customers who buy CPQ on seats. So you can buy our CPQ without buying our billing, or you can buy our billing without our CPQ. But people buy CPQ on seats, but billing on percent of revenue. And we have other people who say, I'm giving you a percent of my revenue. I send $1 million invoices. I'm not giving you a percent of $1 million to generate an invoice. I'll pay you $10, right? An invoice. Other people are saying, I'm not paying you $10 an invoice. The invoice is only $200. But this flexibility in pricing model allows for us to have conversations with people, say, where do you see the value in our software, and how should you buy, right? So, but we're not worried about people all of a sudden radically switching. So this takes a lesson. The data model and owning the data and adding value off the data, the more data we have, the more valuable the system is, becomes a very, very important defense. So if, for example, if your company uses Lovable, right? Say you use Lovable and you're amazing and you're great, right? Well, if the company adopts Bolt, right? And now you have, 20, 30 developers using Bolt, and I'm not saying Bolt's necessarily better than Lovable, I'm just saying they're competitors, then that ability to switch becomes a much more complicated problem. So building things into your products that make it easy for people to collaborate, to work together. And you see this actually also in the offerings of OpenAI and Anthropic, their team-based products, where they have combined workspaces. These things actually are what anchor people, because it gets built into how you run the business and makes it much harder to switch. So when you think about it, what I would think about is that. The other part I would think about is if your value added is not the underlying model, and certainly we're about to release our MCP servers and all our agentic capabilities. And the real fun thing for us is we get to build those and test them with the people who are creating the technology that they run on. But what we didn't do was say, you can only use one of them, or even any particular model from one of them. And the reason for that is that different customers will have different preferences and different use cases and will want different outcomes. And actually, when you run these things, they're materially different. Like not materially better, they're just different. And you may decide to test both of them and go, all three of them, and go, actually, for our company, this one's better, right? The other thing is that they consider whether you really should be including the compute in the cost of your product at all, right? Because if there are multiple providers and you don't know which one of them is going to be the best, it might be a good strategy, as we are doing at New, to say, hey, you can bring your own tokens, right? You can bring your own tokens. And why would you want to do that? Well, if you are very sensitive about what data you're exposing, you might not want to just dump it into a general machine. You might say, nobody literally wants to put their product and pricing into an account they don't know what is learning from. Imagine now the account's going, I recommend you price it this way because your competitor X is pricing it that way. That would be a complete disaster. So our view of it is that security and portability is going to be really important in the competition.
Okay, everyone loves to talk about vision, the pitch, the funding round, but you know what gets zero love? The actual product build. That magical, terrifying phase where nothing works, the docs are out of date, and you've asked your dev team, how's it going, for the 47th time today on Slack. That's where Code Story comes in. It's a podcast for startup founders who know that building the thing is the thing. Hosted by Noah Labhart, Code Story goes deep with tech leaders who've been through it, shipping real products, surviving messy launches, and figuring out what actually works and when you're on the edge of chaos. If you're building now or ever plan to, you'll want these stories in your earballs. Search Code Story wherever you get your podcasts or visit codestory.co, because founders talk vision, but builders tell code stories. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, MoBurst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At MoBurst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to MoBurst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together. 100%. Now, you mentioned the shirt. I need you to unpack the shirt a little bit because I've been looking at it. And black t-shirt gang, it's Friday, let's go. So explain kind of the meaning of the shirt.
Okay. So the back of it is the actual words. And it's something I've been using to explain. Oh, by the way, anybody can have the shirt. It's like, get.new.io/change. And you ask, say how big t-shirt you want. We'll send it to you. It's about a way of us all thinking about what's going on. So the thing I was trying to explain, actually, when I was raising money last time, about why all these AI companies were choosing New, and I was basically explaining to the VCs, to really simplify things to VCs, but I also want to blow their mind. So I said, okay, the thing you have to understand is that the pace of change has changed, right? In other words, things are not just going faster, they're going faster in more ways and faster than they ever went faster before. And the reason that's super relevant to why New is being adopted is now it's not the length of time you've been in business is actually potentially a bad thing, right? Because you've got a data model, legacy data model that's not very adapted. In fact, maybe the answer is, and we're seeing this in some of the emergent, very, very high growth companies, the new entrant may be in the best strategic position to take the market, right? And so you have to think of very, very short planning horizons, very, very short delivery horizons, and think about the fact that whatever thing that you create, unless it's really deeply well thought out and complicated to vibe, for want of a better term, somebody else is going to be able to catch up in feature. So it's better be something more than just like feature function that you're selling, because that's gonna be really, really important. So certainly a lot of the chief executives we talk to, this is actually the sleep at night problem is this. And then because we're a heavily engineering product-based company, we wrote as math, right? So by the way, the actual the real tertiary we're shipping, one of my team came to me and said, that should be a V, not an X. I'm like, well, and it goes, no, it's the velocity. It's the pace of change of the velocity that's changed. And then we go, the second derivative of velocity that's actually really changing. And I said, okay, you're right. It should be V. Yeah.
Yeah, the physics guys are always ruining my UFO talks too,
Yeah, but it was also it was the same conversation as like, can I get one of these shirts? And I can't get some for my friends, right? So it's like, yeah.
Where can you get it again?
Oh, just go to get.new.io/change.
Cool.
And you can just ask for it. It's not a product. It's just fun. It's just fun thing to wear.
It's great too, because it is the can't sleep at night problem, right? If you can really only plan a quarter at a time, because boy, in 3 months, the world might look really crazy. How do you sleep?
I'm in the same boat as everybody else. In some ways really well. I think that having a company, first of all, I didn't found this company. I came in because we have an out and out genius running the company, and she's amazing, Tina Kung, and she never sleeps, so that helps me. She's just an incredible bundle of creative energy and engineering brilliance. But Tina and I openly talk. I mean, people say to us, hey, what's your roadmap? I'm like, are you crazy? Like, the roadmap on at least on the AI side is like 3 months long, because if we built it 3 months ago, the capabilities that we have to work with are so different. It's a bit of a joke. Like, actually, of course, we know what the actual key features are, but the capabilities of them are really changing. I think the biggest concerns we have at New right now is how actually to work with as many people as want to work with us. Is a big problem, because we are doing major enterprise system changes, but we're using a lot of AI to compress that time period. But I have a big worry is how do we possibly do this? And actually, a funny story, we're building out new enablement things. They're driven a lot by AI, and part of it we've introduced training for our customers so they can be more effective. And using the training and some of the AI enablement capabilities that are in our platform, one of our customers actually accidentally went live. Like, so at the end of the training, they went, oh, at night, we built the entire thing. And they were like 95% right. And so that's super exciting for us, because by the way, if you're in a consulting business and you think your job is hands on keys, that's going away. Like, if you really should be losing sleep, is if you sell consulting and you do a lot of typing, that's going away. However, if you do consulting and you do a lot of advising about what to do and how to adapt, that's becoming more important. And that's a really interesting thing. But that's not something I worry about. It's something that I know that a lot of our SI partners are focused on.
Amazing. Your customers are some of the biggest, coolest companies out there. And largely, it seems because you actually created a category, revenue lifecycle management. And I was reading a great quote where you said, the old way of selling is already dead. Maybe you can walk us through the new way of selling and how that helped enable kind of to get these unbelievable customers.
Yeah, and by the old way, I don't mean to say that nobody was doing this before. Always things are on a spectrum, but if you think your job was to go out, bro somebody, make a relationship with them, and talk them into something because I don't know, because you have reputational strength or because you're a super nice person or something like that, that's what I meant by the old way of selling, right? Hey, hey, this is what we do. Here's the problems you have. Here's how my product solves your problem. Buy it. And now you think, well, how can that be dead? That's actually why somebody should buy a product. The problem is the process isn't going to be the same at all. What's going to happen is your marketing is going to reach out to somebody and it's going to touch them with some value offer, right? And the person's like, actually, I do want to do that. Actually, frankly, I do want the systems that OpenAI and et cetera are using. And so what are they going to do next? They're going to go on ChatGPT or on Claude or wherever, in Gemini, and they're going to ask them, if they're smart, they're going to ask, what are the challenges? I'm considering product A, product B, product C, and they're going to jump straight to what are the problems that people have implementing this software. They're not going to go, what's the happy path and what are the good reasons why people do that? They already got that part from your marketing. They're now immediately going to go, who failed and why, right? And so,
what are the horrible side effects here?
Yeah. Like what bad things, bad things can happen. And so, so this has always been true. HubSpot been talking about this for a long time, but there's a big part of the original Salesforce culture, I would say, was this commitment to this idea that you enable people, you help them be successful, you do all this sort of stuff. And so working with customers and listening to them is going to be super, super important. But the other part is you have to be open. You have to be completely open. Now, so what do they want you to do? What they want what they come to when they do want to talk to human beings, but they want the human beings to guide them through an analysis of why this might not succeed, right? And so the real new way of selling is either nothing, in the sense that you just enable people to go down their own journey and then facilitate the transaction at the end. And that's what a lot of PLG and SLG is like. Or it's very, very collaborative. Like, in other words, we train our people to actually talk about why you might not want to buy new. Like, so for example, if you, like NVIDIA came to us, right? Imagine
Yeah.
how hard it is to turn down NVIDIA, right? But actually,
Great.
I'm not sure what they actually bought, but I sent them to Logic because they sell basically very, very highly configured compute platforms, like the computing equivalent of selling helicopter parts, right? And they're infinitely configurable. And we just said, you know what? I know you love our software. I know it's amazing and it's applicable to part of your business, but the big meaty part of your business, we are deliberately not good at that. It's not that we're accidentally not good at it. To be great at something, you have to not try to be all things to all people like RCA is trying to be. And we basically say, so we actually say, you know what? We don't think we're the right fit. Here's a bunch of vendors we respect, and you should go talk to those people. Would you like me to make intros for you? Which just then made me want to throw up in my mouth. But that was the right answer for that person. That's what's going to actually win you more deals. How does the story end? We get lots of back channel from some people that we talked to over there. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like the new way of selling is integrity. And I'm glad the old way is gone because I suck at golf. I just can't do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's, I think the human part is still important. I don't think it's not important. I think that, you get out of the office and go see people is still important. It's just get out the office and go see people and listen.
Yeah. I love that. Amazing. Mark, you've had an unbelievable career as a founder and a leader, multiple exits, super successful. What was it about New that got you off the bench to come lead this company?
Tina
Yeah.
Kung. So I was asked by some of the early investors, and just think about it, like New is basically like another financial system like NetSuite. Like it's not the same as NetSuite, but it's still a very, very big, hairy ass goal of replacing multiple different systems with one thing. So that's the analogy. And I just sold a company to TA. We owned that company almost completely outright. There was no VC in it, so it was great. And we just managed to make money like right from the get-go. So that was how we managed to hang on to it. And so I was planning to just go kiteboarding and not run a company for a while. And then Tina gave me just the most clear, statement about what she wanted to achieve. And it's so true to her and true, like her commitment to our customers is bonkers. I once asked her, because people try to buy us all the time and we're not for sale, but I said, how much money would be enough, Tina? And she goes, no amount of money. We're not done. I think she's like committed to the outcome for our customers. And I'm just like, I love that about her. I don't think that's actually true. I think anybody out there who's thinking about a very, very big number, it's always possible. But I think it's the ethos of the clarity of vision, the amazingly high level of execution, even at the early stage when I first joined them, and then this complete obsession with the outcome for our customers that I find energizing and joyful. And we have a thing about New, which we say all the time. This is so hard that if you don't love it, you should leave. Like what we're doing is so ridiculous, like climbing Mount Everest. If you don't really like mountain climbing, you probably shouldn't do that, right?
Amazing. Let's look beyond the quarter to the next 12 months. You guys have raised 40 million plus. You guys have the biggest logos in the world as customers. What are the big challenges you see over the next 12 months?
Well, I think, again, being customer focused, I think, look, New's a very young company and we have tremendous appreciation and gratitude to all the early customers. So one of the biggest things for us right now is New is way better now than it was, say, 12 months ago. It's way more mature. It's way more extensive, working with some of these amazing companies. If you ever heard the Bill Gates interview about how IBM made Microsoft a massively better company. It was one of their big strategic advantages was working with people who demanded a lot, right? Well, these massive AI companies, because of their pace of change, are that for us. So one of the big emphases for the next year is going back into our customer base and say, hey, can we come back in and look at how we implemented you and talk again about this? And there's no charge for this service. We're going back into all of our customers and saying, hey, can we look again and think, is there a better way to do this now? Can we help guide you through that transition? Because we're profoundly grateful. Like I said, God bless the first people to buy enterprise software. Like somebody has to do it. And we're very devoted to them. Why? Well, the reason is that if you really want to do what we want to do, which is be the biggest business system, one of the biggest business systems on earth, and certainly the biggest recurring billing system on earth, then you really have to be focused not just on the next customers, but on your existing customers. And so that's a huge push. On the new customer side, the big concern is that right now it's a complex product. So the demand for the product is completely right now outstripping our ability even to respond to the phone calls. So I'm very fortunate to have a lot of, senior executives from major tech companies on our team. We're basically spearfishing some other great people and really laying track for delivering the same high quality experience to the next generation of customers, the high touch experience to the next generation of customers, but not necessarily by us, right? So that's the interesting thing. You need to scale it. So it's how do you let other people build really successful business models? So if you're an SI and you're in the Salesforce space, we're super focused on helping those companies get through that transition into a much more profitable future rather than just taking their lunch, right? So it's but that's, in 12 months, we'll be a very, very significantly bigger company, but we'll have a much, much bigger ecosystem. And that's the most exciting thing going on right now.
Tremendous. Thank you so much, Mark. This has been awesome. Last question. Based on where you see the puck going now, if you were entering college as a freshman, what would you study?
If I was actually, I get asked this question all the time. I would say, study whatever the heck is going to make your college experience really, really important to forming who you are going to be. Don't make a call as to what the future economy in 20 years is going to need. In other words, if you don't think, or let me put it this way, if you go to college and you're not so interested in what you're studying that it will become an obsession and you'll learn to be just a complete nerd and geek about what you're doing, and I don't care what it is, right? Then don't do it, because your future value is going to be that you were able to go deep on stuff and that you are thoughtful and that you have a perspective. It will not be that you learned how to do marketing communications. Like, the way in which marketing communications will be done will be so different from the way you learned it that you won't get any value out of it. But you could still do marketing communications, but do it in a way where you are not mailing it in, no pun intended. You're actually, going there and do socialize and do enjoy the college experience, but just understand that what you are investing in is you, not in some company's future cog for you, because there's very little chance that you will call that right. So if you were really into mechanical engineering, you should go and become and study mechanical engineering. And I don't know exactly how mechanical engineering will be in that time, but you will, right? You'll get to experience that. But if you go there because, I don't know, somebody told you should do mechanical engineering or frankly, computer science, right? And somebody says you should go into computer science because there's going to be a lot of jobs. That was never a good reason to go into computer science in the first place. And it's certainly not now, right? By the way, can I ask you a question? Do you think we're heading towards the AI 2027 future, or do you think we're heading to the Jetson future? Like, where everybody kind of has a job but they don't work as much. Like, where do you fall on this?
Boy, it really depends on if I've had my coffee yet or No, I think we're going to a Jetsons future. At least that's the future I want to believe. You know, a part of the reason why I started this podcast is to explore that very conversation because I tell you the truth, I was feeling a little pessimistic, a little scared about it. But talking to people working in the space and building is very reassuring. And also, you seeing all the as great as some of these products are, boy, they're also half baked in a lot of different ways too. So I'm a strong believer that humans are going to pull it together. And I really like your answer too about studying in college. I've asked that question dozens of times. It might be my favorite answer. And it reminds me of the way Miyamoto Musashi talked about the way of the sword and how by studying the sword with such intensity, he saw the way broadly in all things and was able to become an expert flower arranger based on his experience with swords. So I really appreciate you for that answer.
Well, I'm going to go back and read that. That sounds fascinating. Look, I think it's the other side of this is one of the things. If somebody is building an AI startup and you're wondering whether you have the right tools or things like that, I just want to make one last point. This is really complicated, and what you're doing is complicated. Reach out to us. We're not going to sell you. Like, frankly, if you're like under $20 million, you can just have our stuff and we'll help you grow your company. We all have to accept that we all have to learn. So why would I want to be working with like little tiny companies when I work with the biggest companies in the world? Is because I want to learn. I want to learn from them. And I think that's the other thing we all have to do, whether you're going to college or you're going to, whether you're already an established executive like myself, you have to understand that what this means is you actually don't know what you don't know, right? And so the other thing I would say to people is share your ideas, share your objectives. The value of closeted intellectual property has gone to zero. Nothing grows in the dark, right? So just instead of saying, oh, I don't want to tell anybody because they're going to steal my idea, they're definitely going to steal your idea. That's definitely going to happen. What you want to do is build a community around you of people who believe in you and want to make you successful. Don't like sit a program in your cave and hope that they'll come. Go out there and talk to people and understand and get their perspective. And if it turns out they talk you out of the idea, that's probably a good thing. If it turns out they can't talk you out of the idea, that's a better thing, right? But I think we all got to basically be very humble through the next, maybe forever. Maybe we should always have been doing that, but I think that's the other big thing. You try to be humble.
Extraordinary. Mark, thank you so much. What's the best place for people to connect with you online?
LinkedIn, I live on LinkedIn. It's where I recruit. It's where I learn a lot. I don't have enough cycles to be really responsive on Reddit or on X. So LinkedIn is easy to find me. It's easy to triangulate on me. And look, if there's anything, my first question when anybody connects with me, I won't connect to everybody. If you send me a connection request, tell me what I can do to help you, right? If there's something I can do to help you, I'm super interested. I'm more interested in what I can do to help you than what you can do to help me. But if what I can help for you is talk to you about your new product or your new service, or maybe connect you with people who'll be interested in betaing it, or frankly, finding the right person in my company to sell to, I'm open to that, just as long as you basically consider, come to with the same attitude of, you're coming to help me and asking me to help you. But if you just need me to help you, I'm totally fine with that too.
Amazing. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. This is super fun. Thank you for setting it up.
You bet.
Bye.
Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI